UFC Fight Night Vegas 9, Overeem versus Sakai takes place this weekend, and we're going to be going through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim open. I actually don't know what the early prelim opener is, because we don't know what the card is yet. We have not had a full card layout yet. I have no idea what order to do things in, and I'm lost already on the first hurdle. I got through I versus Calvillo full card predictions, but I'm telling you this right now, this is going to be tough. I'm just going to act as if this is not an absolute abomination of a fight card and an absolute disgrace and embarrassment to the sport of MMA. Starting with our early prelim opener of, I genuinely still don't know who it is, but I'm going to go off of Tapology, Brian Kelleher versus Kevin Natividad. Brian Kelleher is probably going to win. Brian Kelleher was originally supposed to be taking on Ricky Simone on this card. I was going to pick Ricky Simone to beat Brian Kelleher in that matchup. I thought Ricky Simone could probably do the better thing and outgrind Brian Kelleher for 3 rounds. I thought Ricky Simone was a very good fighter. I did believe that Brian Kelleher had a good chance against him, but now we've lost one of the only credible fights on the card. Brian Kelleher will be taking on Kevin Natividad, and Kevin Natividad, although being 9-1, has fought absolute cans, and I don't even know if I want to go as far and say cans. He's for absolute Tupperware containers. And it's just, there's no point even breaking this one down. I'm going to be going with Brian Kelleher. He went to a split. This guy, Kevin Natividad, went to a split decision with a guy who was 7-7. I couldn't even get that out of my mouth just then. That's how disgraced I am with this guy's record so far. Beat a guy who was 8-7, beat a guy who was 0-1, beat a guy who was 2-1. I just don't see a guy who's going to be grinding out Brian Kelleher for 3 rounds, because it seems like that's the only way you're going to be able to beat him, unless you can catch him on the chin. This guy, Kevin Natividad, does not seem to have a list of big KO wins over credible opponents, so I'm going to be going with Brian Kelleher, getting the job done, surviving the first round onslaught. He's a very good fighter, Brian Kelleher. Only lost to some of the best in the division, lost to Jimmy Rivera in Bellator, lost to some other great guys, got caught on the chin by Montel Jackson and submitted. Wasn't the best performance of his career, lost to John Lineker, lost to Marlon Vera. These are guys that I'm okay with someone losing to, most recently, of course, losing to Cody Stamann. Actually, I thought could have won that 3rd round against Stamann, so I think he's going to get the job done here. Against Kevin Natividad, I almost forgot his name for a second. I just don't see this guy getting it done in the 1st round, and if he doesn't get it done in the 1st round, I don't see how a guy on a couple days' notice is going to be able to grind out Brian Kelleher for those last 2. I'm going to go with Brian Kelleher getting the job done by 2nd round submission, earning himself a big finish, and this might be a blessing in disguise for Brian Kelleher, because I'll tell you this, I thought he was going to lose to Ricky Simone. He's kind of just been offered up a guy who looks good because he's 9-1, but has in fact fought absolute nobodies his entire career and has a complete padded record. I think Brian Kelleher is going to go out there and make it look easy in the 2nd round by submission. Moving on up the card, Cole Smith versus Hunter Azure. I'm going to go with Hunter Azure, although it goes against everything I believe in, because Hunter Azure only 3 months ago, or just over 3 months ago, was knocked out cold by another man on this card who's had 2 fights in between that, Brian Kelleher. These guys are both extremely active, but a guy turning around after a brutal KO loss that he had to Brian Kelleher, which wasn't just a TKO, he got KO'd stiff by Brian Kelleher with follow-up shots included, or I don't even know if there were follow-up shots, but he got KO'd brutally stiff by Brian Kelleher. Hunter Azure is it's a very dangerous move for him to be taking this matchup. I do believe he's going to get it done against Cole Smith. I don't see a way that Cole Smith's going to go out there and catch Hunter Azure on the chin. That's just something I don't see happening. Hunter Azure is the rangier guy. He's even a shorter guy as well. It's hard to find your way on the inside against a guy who's shorter than you with the reach advantage. Ask Max Holloway against Alexander Volkanovski for 2 fights. Hunter Azure is going to get the job done, mainly because I don't see Cole Smith going out there and getting an early KO. So I don't think there's a big threat of KO power that's going to maybe affect Hunter Azure in those, because Hunter Azure is coming off a KO loss. Quick turnaround, he could get chinned in the 1st round. I don't think Cole Smith is that kind of guy who's going to go out there and chin him in the 1st round. I just don't see it happening. Cole Smith seems to be a guy who likes to grind out his opponents, maybe go for some submissions. I don't see anyone, let alone even Brian Kelleher was losing to Hunter Azure for 2 rounds. I don't see many people grinding out Hunter Azure. He's a guy who ground out Brad Katona. And I don't know, I just don't see it happening. I don't see Cole Smith going out there. I'm forgetting everyone's names, because I don't care about them. I don't see Cole Smith going out there and grinding out Hunter Azure for 3 rounds. His only chance, in my opinion, is to get this done quick and early. I just don't see that happening. He hasn't really shown too explosive KO power or too amazing accuracy in any of his fights so far. I'm going to be going with Hunter Azure getting the job done, even though I do worry about him on a quick turnaround. Moving on up the card, Marcos Rodrigo de Lima versus Alexander Romanov. God, it's just absolutely stacked with talent. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, well known for losing to Stefan Struve, post gloves down on the octagon. Stefan Struve, I believe. I think that was around the time that Struve was thinking of retiring. He lost to Stefan Struve. He has a big win against Ben Sassoli. If you can call it a big win, he has a win over Adam. Not even going to try that surname, but Marcos Rodrigo de Lima is a dangerous man, and I'm actually going to break this one down with some kind of seriousness because I've been paying attention to Alexander Romanov's career for the past few fights. All of his fights at Eagles MMA I've seen. I've also seen this fight where he got a forearm choke against one of his opponents, which is extremely rare to get without a gi on, because there's not really anything to grab a hold of to get the forearm choke, but he's just so morbidly obese that he can put his weight over someone with the forearm, and he got a guy to tap to it, so well done to Alexander Romanov. I like his fights. I like his style for a big guy, and to me, Marcos Rodrigo de Lima is not a heavyweight. Alexander Romanov is not either, I'll be honest with you guys. But Marcos Rodrigo de Lima started his career at light heavyweight. Not started his career, but had a career at light heavyweight, used to be in peak physical condition, and now he's going to heavyweight. That doesn't tell me that he's looking for a new look in a new division. It tells me that he doesn't want to do diets anymore. He doesn't want to be strict with his diet. He just wants to eat whatever he wants and still fights. And you know what? That might work out for him here, but I think I'm going to be going with Alexander Romanov. If Alexander Romanov was a guy who stuck his chin down and swung haymakers to try and get a finish, I might pick Marcos Rodrigo de Lima to catch him coming in like he did against Ben Sassoli. Alexander Romanov is not that guy. Not that guy whatsoever. Also, he's gotten in better and better shape as his career has progressed. If you look back at some of his earlier fights, he's completely unrecognizable. I'll be honest with you, he looks like an absolute saggy mess, but now he seems to have toned things up a little bit. I'm assuming he's going to be in better shape for this fight, not to mention he's had a fight booked for the longest time on some previous cards. I believe 2 months ago he had a fight booked, and last month he had a fight booked as well. It ended up getting cancelled. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima taking this on less of a notice. I'm going to go with Alexander Romanov. I think he's educated enough in the first round. He doesn't just stick his chin down and throw haymakers. He's got nice body kicks. And that's not something I usually say about a heavyweight fighter. I don't think there's really many heavyweight fighters you can say that about, but Alexander Romanov has got some nice body kicks, some nice leg kicks as well. He's not a guy who goes out there swinging and looking for a big KO. The KO just happens to happen when he slams guys to the ground and ends up on top of them with his big 265-pound frame. I'm going to go with Alexander Romanov getting the job done. I think he chews up the legs of de Lima from the outside, stays nice and patient, and then when it's time, he'll go out there, get Rodrigo de Lima to the ground, and just be too big and monstrous and obese on top of Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. Get the job done. There's only so much weight you can carry regardless of how good your jiu-jitsu is. I'm going to go with Alexander Romanov getting a big win by TKO to ground and pound in the first or second round. Moving on up the card, another barn burner. Montana De La Rosa versus Vivian Araujo, however you pronounce her name. I'm going to go with Vivian Araujo, and I genuinely don't know why. Montana De La Rosa's, listen, they're both not good fighters, but Vivian Araujo is actually somewhat decent. She's only lost to Jessica. You can't put those two in the same sentence, though. Somewhat decent, lost to Jessica Eye. I don't know if I can do that, but I'm going to do that just to get through these fucking predictions. Montana De La Rosa definitely wears the trousers in the De La Rosa family, because Mark De La Rosa has not been bringing home the bread to the table over the past few years. I'll tell you that. On a 4-fight losing streak right now, at least someone is providing for the family. So Montana De La Rosa coming off a big win against Mauro Romero Barella. But is it really a big win? It's Mauro Romero Barella. It was a decision win, you know. She's decent. She's beaten Nadia Kassim. How do I even break this shit down? Embarrassment, man. 8-2 Vivian Araujo, I think, is going to get the job done. She's beaten some... She's beat Alexis Davis. She beat Talita Bernardo. I think she gets it done, okay? I just think that... Just take my fucking word for it. Viviane Araújo is going to get the job done. She's lost to better competition than Montana De La Rosa has lost to. I don't really credit too much a loss to Andrea Lee compared to a loss to Jessica Ai. You know, she lost to Nico Montano as well, did Montana De La Rosa, and that stinks of shit. Lost to Cynthia Calvillo, Mackenzie Dern, which aren't too bad of losses, but I'm still going to be going with Viviane Araújo to use the loss to Jessica Ai. She's had her camp before this one. She was training for Jennifer Maia. I think she's going to get the job done against Montana De La Rosa. I'll say just grinding it out longer and maybe getting a job done in the third round by submission or TKO. Third round finish for Viviane Araújo. Moving on to another great matchup. Bartosz Verbinski versus Andre Muniz. I'm actually excited about this one, to be honest with you. I'm frothing at the mouth here, trying to keep my saliva in after all of these great matchups I've just read out. Bartosz Verbinski versus Andre Muniz. Great matchup. Bartosz Verbinski coming off a big win now against Darren Stewart. Who knew how big that win was going to look? At the time, it looked like Darren Stewart had an off night. If you don't remember, that fight was supposed to be on Cage Warriors. I mean, it was supposed to be at UFC London. UFC London got scrapped, but there was a UK Cage Warriors event on the Friday before. They both fought on that card, on the Cage Warriors card, outside of their UFC contracts, which was weird, but Cage Warriors is owned by the UFC, so I think they're allowed to do that kind of stuff, and that's why they got away with it. Bartosz Verbinski went out there. It wasn't close. He just mauled Darren Stewart for 3 rounds. I think he's going to get the job done against Andre Muniz. I don't really rate Andre Muniz too much going into this matchup. I'm going to go with Bartosz Verbinski. I really like his win over Darren Stewart. He did lose to Mikel Perezares, but the guy was 25-2 at the time, so I think we can give him a bit of a break. He beat Emil Meek, ground him out for 3 rounds. I think he's going to go out there, take Andre Muniz to the ground, get things done by smushing him to a unanimous decision win. I haven't seen too much out of Andre Muniz that I'm too happy about. He hasn't really beaten too high quality of opponents. Best win recently being over Antonio Arroyo, who again has not fought the best opponents. I'm going to be going with Bartosz Verbinski earning himself the unanimous decision win by grinding Andre Muniz out to a unanimous decision via ground control Rakic versus Smith style. But with a bit more ground and pound, hopefully, because I don't know if I can sit through that again. But moving on to the main card and how stacked this main card is. We're kicking it off with big names. Thiago Moises versus Jarlin Turner. Jarlin Turner's 9-5. He's on the main card of a fight night. That's just how it works. But to be fair to Jarlin Turner, he's lost to some decent opponents. Vicente Luque, I don't really hold anything against him there for losing to him. The Matt Frivola one really does worry me because Jarlin Turner, there is a hatred for my soul when I see a guy that's cutting so much more weight than everyone else. Like, Jarlin Turner, you should not. You got KO'd at welterweight by Vicente Luque and you thought to yourself, you know what I need to do? Go down to lightweight and bully midgets. It just doesn't make any sense. Jarlin Turner's going to lose to Thiago Moises. I saw in Thiago Moises' last fight, by the way. Still a young guy as well. A lot of people don't realise this. 25 years of age. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Dangerous, dangerous man. I just feel as though Thiago Moises, after his last performance against Michael Johnson, what we saw in that fight was a calmness under fire, which I think he's going to need to tap into in this fight against Jarlin Turner. Michael Johnson is devastating with the hands, and Thiago Moises in that fight, I said this during the fight as well, it looked like it was his plan to just sort of ride out the storm, not get hit by anything too big, cover up when he needs to, escape when he needs to, and then in the second round, he just goes out there, gets straight to work and gets it done. It's hard to deny him in this fight against Jarlin Turner, but you know, if Thiago Moises was the type of guy to go out there and swing back and forth on the feet a little bit and test himself in the stand-up department, maybe I wouldn't mind Jarlin Turner as an upset. Thiago Moises is not that kind of guy. We saw that in his last fight against Michael Johnson. He's more of a guy who can withstand the storm on the feet, look for his openings in the jiu-jitsu and go straight to what he does best. I like that after seeing his last performance against Michael Johnson. I think he goes out there, avoids the first round, opens up in the second with some of that jiu-jitsu, and in all honesty, I just think Jarlin Turner's limbs are too long not to be wrenched out of their socket. I'm going to go with Thiago Moises getting a job done by submission in the second round, probably some kind of leg submission as well. Who knows? But I'm going to go with Thiago Moises getting a job done, submission in the second round. Moving on, Mikel Pereira versus Alim Imadiev. I'm going to go with Mikel Pereira, even though I don't like the prediction, because Alim Imadiev, in my opinion, is a good underdog. Okay, and there aren't too many good underdogs on this card, but I think Alim Imadiev is one of the good underdogs, and I don't know if the odds have closed up a little bit. Oh, they have closed up. Originally, he was a bit of an underdog. They're now completely evens, but one thing I don't like about Alim Imadiev is, before Max Griffin which he lost to, but he only lost that fight because he was grabbing on the cage and there were some foul moves that he was doing, but a majority of it was him grabbing onto the cage in that fight that got him those points taken away, I believe. Lost it by decision, majority decision to Max Griffin. After that one, lost to Danny Roberts. Was doing well in that fight as well, but Danny Roberts eventually clipped him with a big punch in the second round. Coming off of a KO loss, I couldn't think of a more nerve-wracking guy to go up against than Mikel Pereira. If I'm coming off of a first KO loss in my career, don't put me against Mikel Pereira next, because I'm going to shit myself in the first round, and I'm probably going to walk into a KO. I'm going to go with Mikel Pereira getting it done early. I like Zelim Imadiev. He's one of these guys, though, whose name ends with a V, which usually suggests that they're going to be some kind of savage that's flown on, like, normally the Imadievs and the Ovs and the Ovskis and the Evs and the Aevs all seem to go through M1 and some dangerous competition levels, but Zelim Imadiev has been hiding away and fighting in Octagon Fighting Sensation League, and the Hammer of 4-3, which sounds like I don't know what they were doing in that one, maybe advertising a new Marvel movie with a cage fight. I don't know what promotion that is, but still, I'm going to go with Mikel Pereira getting it done. I like the fact that the odds have closed up now as well. Makes it a little bit nicer to pick him. No one likes picking a heavy favourite, so I'll go with Mikel Pereira getting it done, purely because Imadiev has not beaten anyone of any credential whatsoever. You look at his record, 0-2, 0-2, 0-0, 0-0, 2-0, 0-0, 9-8, 16-8. These are the guys that he fought outside the UFC to get here. Don't rate that whatsoever compared to the other resumes that we see guys take on and level of competition that we see guys rise to outside the UFC. I'm going to go with Mikel Pereira. Experience, and also because even in his last fight with Diego Sanchez, even though he lost, he looked like he tamed himself, which I like, because I don't like a guy who goes out there and goes crazy, because you could walk straight into a double leg and all of a sudden Zelim Imadiev is on top of you and it's a real bad problem. But in the fight against Diego Sanchez, Mikel Pereira strategically picked him apart for the majority of that fight. Obviously Diego Sanchez ended up quitting. I know a lot of people don't like hearing people say that, but he could have continued, in my opinion. Brock Weaver, if you asked him 10 seconds after, probably would have wanted to continue. But, you know, Diego Sanchez, whatever. He won that fight. DQ, illegal knee. I'm going to be going with Mikel Pereira. He looked patient in that fight with Sanchez, which showed me that he'd learned a lesson from his fight with Tristan Connolly, which was a big upset at the time. Plus, he has a win over Danny Roberts as well, who has a KO win against Zelim Imadiev. I know that doesn't normally tell the tale of a fight, but I just think that he's taming himself. He's learning from his mistakes. He's not going all out in the first round anymore. We saw that in the Diego Sanchez fight. I think he's going to come out calm, patient, pick apart Zelim Imadiev, eventually KOing him in the first round. I'm going with Mikel Pereira to get the job done. Moving on up this stacked card. Who is the next superstar versus superstar fight on this card? You guessed it. It's Ciara Eubanks versus Carol Rosa. Ciara Eubanks is 5-4. I sort of have a moral obligation to pick against her here, but you know what? She's a dangerous fighter. She actually looked pretty good in her last fight against Sarah Moras, but then again, Sarah Moras is 6-5. Not very good indeed there either. And Carol Rosa, 13-3. Dangerous opponent, coming off a win against a good competition opponent, Vanessa Mello, who's 10-7, which is actually quite an amazing record when it comes to that division and some of the records that we do see in that division, including Ciara Eubanks. Before that, she beat a girl who was 6-0 by split decision, though. Lara Procopio is her name. I mean, there's not really much to go off of here, but I am going to be going with Carol Rosa. Got the experience. Looks pretty decent on the feet as well. Looked good in her last competition. Now she's taking a quick turnaround fight. Ciara Eubanks has known about this for a while, but I remember Carol Rosa talking about wanting to stay extremely active towards the end of this year and ride the momentum. I'm going to take Carol Rosa getting the job done by outstriking Ciara Eubanks for 3 rounds to a unanimous decision, because I'll tell you this, Ciara Eubanks got outstruck by Betchko Hare for 3 rounds. I don't even know if she got outstruck, but she just got dominated by Betchko Hare for 3 rounds, including a lot of the striking, to be fair. She did get outstruck by Betchko Hare. Even though she had some success, we just watched Betchko Hare get completely outstruck by Paniki Hanzad for 3 rounds. I'm going to be going with Carol Rosa getting the job done. Yeah, I'll go with Carol Rosa. Not really much to break down. And if Ciara Eubanks loses, she'll be 5-5. Get rid of her. Even if she wins, she'll be 6-4. Get rid of her. This is the UFC. You're putting them on the main card. The UFC is supposed to be the best fighting and the best fighters in the world, all compiled together to give us a weekly show of the best fighters in the world, and you've got someone who's 5-4 on the main card. It looks bad on us. Not kill her. Get rid of her. Sorry, that was the wrong motion to do. Not kill her. Get rid of her. And just, I don't know, make her go missing. Moving on. Ovince St. Preux versus Alonzo Menifield in the co-main event. I don't know if this is the co-main event. I think it is the co-main event because I don't know if it is. I'm looking at the main card on Google right now and it says that it isn't. So, this could be the co-main event and this couldn't be the co-main event. Maybe that's just part of the excitement of this card. Maybe they're trying a new angle on this card. We're not looking to see who wins. We're just looking to see what fights show up on the night because we don't know anything about the layout of the card because the UFC's only a $1 billion company, as I've said multiple times on this channel. I'm going to go with OSP because although Alonzo Menifield has got good KO power and has shown great KO power and did catch Paul Craig after Paul Craig threw two spinning wheel kicks in a row. He did catch him after doing that. He did just lose to Devin Clark. Took a lot of damage in that bout as well. I am a fan of the fact that this got delayed a little bit because I didn't want to see Alonzo Menifield make such a quick turnaround, and at least now he's had a little bit more of a camp. I think OSP is going to go out there, get the job done, because as much as everyone seems to think that OSP is this chinny guy, he's done a real good job recently of not getting himself KO'd. I have to take into consideration that because in his last fight against Ben Rothwell, I thought Rothwell won. He could have lost that fight. It could have gone to OSP. Who knows? Before that, he beat Mikhail Alexijuk, a KO artist with dangerous one-punch knockout power in the first round. Avoided that situation. Ended up getting a submission in the second round against Nikita Krylov. I mean, fair enough, got finished, but didn't get KO'd. I just don't think Alonzo Menifield is going to chin OSP. Because even Dominic Reyes, even though he actually technically did, even though it says unanimous decision here, if you watch that fight again, OSP got KO'd at the end of that fight on the buzzer. That should have been called a KO loss. But even then, didn't get KO'd by Reyes for 2 whole rounds. 3 whole rounds, pretty much, other than the last few seconds. I'm going to go with Ovince St. Preux. Didn't get KO'd against Tyson Pedro, who's a decent enough striker. Ended up taking him down and getting the job done there. I just think I'm going to go with OSP. You know, I don't think he's there to be KO'd like everyone seems to think he is. He knows that his chin is no longer there, which can often create a guy who's much harder to KO because he's so awkward and elusive and doesn't want to get into any wild exchanges. I think that's going to favour OSP. I think we'll see Alonzo Menifield go out there, throw a bunch of big shots, maybe rock OSP at one point. I don't think he KOs him stiff. I think eventually OSP takes things to the ground and smushes smushes Alonzo Menifield and gets the Von Flue choke by submission. I'll go with submission OSP. End of the first round or beginning of the second round. OSP gets it done. The resurrection begins at light heavyweight after an unsuccessful move to heavyweight. OSP gets it done by submission the first or second round. Moving on. Alistair Overeem versus Augusto Sakai. Actually, I can break this one down with some level of intellect. We got there in the end. We got to the very end. I thought we'd never make it to this main event. I thought I would have quit this video by now, going through those prelims. But we're at the main event. I think I'm going to go with Alistair Overeem. I like Augusto Sakai. I haven't seen anything too impressive out of him in his career. I'm going to be breaking down this fight in way more detail tomorrow with a full fight breakdown and prediction video that's going to come out. But still, I look through Augusto Sakai's career. I credit a win over Marcin Tybura, but Marcin Tybura was morbidly obese there, and he looks in a bit better shape now, but still Marcin Tybura, I think, is kind of trailing off towards the end. Augusto Sakai did get a big win against him, but then again, you look at 2 split decisions to Blagoy Ivanov and Andrei Arlovski. I think that Alistair Overeem would dismantle Arlovski at this point. You know, like really badly dismantle Arlovski. I like Overeem. I think the resurrection is real. He's looking for one last run at the title. I like the storyline. I don't know why he took this matchup, because he could have been fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik next at the end of the year and had a much better fight against a much bigger name and a much higher ranked guy that's going to move him towards a title shot, and a well-anticipated rematch after he dominated Jairzinho Rozenstruik for the entire fight. So I'm going to go with Alistair Overeem. Augusto Sakai, you look at his fight against Andrei Arlovski. I know I just said that as a win. It's not a win. I'm not counting that as a win. It's the same way I'll move on. Any robbery from now on, I'm just counting it the other way. I'm counting it on what actually happened. Andrei Arlovski outstruck Augusto Sakai clearly in those rounds. He clearly beat Augusto Sakai, and they didn't give him the win. Look at those stats. It's actually daylight rob. This is a heist. It was a heist. It wasn't even a robbery. This was a well-planned, well-thought-out way to get Augusto Sakai a win. I don't know if they would go above and beyond behind the scenes and rig the entire credentials and maybe risk losing the entire credibility of their company for a win for Augusto Sakai, but I'm telling you, I'm considering it. Because that was a robbery. I'm going to go with Alistair Overeem. Not to mention, Augusto Sakai just doesn't seem to be a guy who has ridiculous KO power. He is a bit more patient, which I think is going to let Overeem ease into the fight a little bit more, because the big danger with Overeem, picking Overeem to win fights anyway, is that he might get KO'd in the first round. So a lot of people pick guys that are explosive in the first round to get it done. I picked Overeem to beat Walt Harris. I pick Overeem to beat a lot of fighters. I just think that Overeem's going to get it done. He's avoided the onslaught from Jairzinho Rozenstruik for at least 24 minutes and 58 seconds. You've got to give him that, you know. If that's 5 rounds. Yes, it is. He avoided the onslaught from Walt Harris. Well, got caught with the onslaught, but still survived through it. Showed his veteran status. Ended up on top and controlling the fight. I think he's going to get it done against Augusto Sakai. I just think you have to be aggressive early against Overeem and try and catch him being lazy in the first round and not being quite so switched on. If you give Overeem time to breathe, which I feel as though Augusto Sakai is going to do, I think Overeem's actually going to get a big KO here. Maybe not a KO, actually. KO. I think he takes down Augusto Sakai after rocking him, gets the submission, or gets a TKO via ground and pound. I think most likely unappealing ground and pound shots from Alistair Overeem get made. I think he's going to get the job done against Augusto Sakai by unappealing, and I'm really making sure to emphasize unappealing ground and pound to Augusto Sakai, because I'll tell you this, Alistair Overeem's ground and pound against Alexei Olenek and against Walt Harris was maybe some of the most unsavage ground and pound we've ever seen. It's just like a weird brain fart that Overeem has when he's on top of a guy looking to ground and pound him. You could say he was trying to have a bit of mercy on Walt Harris, which could be the case. I think he gets a similar type win against Augusto Sakai, getting the job done by second round or third round ground and pound TKO. Thank you for watching. We got there in the end. Hopefully there are better cards to come, because this one's an absolute shame. This is a shame. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. Goodbye.